Outraged locally and nationally after President Biden issued a proclamation for Transgender Day of Visibility on March 31st. But this year it happens to fall on Easter.
If I were to look for a compromise with the trans community and a way that they maybe could have dismissed this in their own minds and not made this a big thing, I would have went to the trans community and said, hey, we all know this is Trans Day of Visibility, but this year it identifies as Easter. So let's respect their Easter pronouns and show exactly how open-minded, loving, and accepting we are. This year, Trans Day of Visibility happens to fall on Easter, and the Christians are not having it. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. All right, you guys, right now, Joe Biden is in deep doo-doo. Because just yesterday, which would be Friday, he declared March 31st Trans Day of Visibility, just like he has every year. So, Joe Biden has asked Christians to tuck their Easter eggs, because at the end of his proclamation, what he says is, therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility. I call upon all Americans to join us in lifting up the lives and voices of transgender people throughout our nation and to work hard towards eliminating violence and discrimination based on gender identity. Donald Trump, of course, jumped all over it and put out a statement, or his people put out a statement. The statement reads, "It is appalling and insulting that Joe Biden's White House prohibited children from submitting religious egg designs for their Easter art event and formally proclaimed Easter Sunday as Trans Day of Visibility. Sadly, these are just two more examples of the Biden administration's years-long assault on the Christian faith. We call on Joe Biden's failing campaign and White House to issue an apology to the millions of Catholics and Christians across America who believe tomorrow is for one celebration only, the resurrection of Jesus Christ." And I can't say I blame him, because this is the perfect opportunity for Donald Trump to go after Joe Biden the way that he wants to and the way that he's going to need to win this election. And whether you like Donald Trump or not, this definitely is good strategy, because here's the thing, you guys. I'm a pretty strong-willed man myself, but even I know better than to argue with Christians about Jesus Christ in America. That just isn't going to be a winning battle. And if you ask me, the trans community should have seen this coming, and they should have been like, look, this is an election year. We've been the recipients of a lot of bad publicity lately. The last thing we need is for Christians to feel like we're trying to infringe on their traditions. So maybe this year, Joe Biden should sit it out, doesn't have to declare this Trans Day of Visibility. We all know that it's Trans Day of Visibility, and when I say we all, I mean the trans community, because even though it's been going on since 2009, as a gay man myself, I'm pretty tired of the trans community trying to make it seem like these are time-honored traditions within the community. It's existed since 2009. It didn't really catch traction until just recently. Sure, there was a very small percentage of the population that was actually celebrating it as Trans Day of Visibility, but in the mainstream, even within the
2S LGBTQ
it just hasn't been a thing like that. Easter, however, how long has Easter been a thing, you guys? I wonder.
In 325 AD, Roman Emperor Constantine and the Council of Nicaea ruled that Easter must fall only on a Sunday, the day when Christ rose.
Feels like forever, probably because it has been forever. And I know that Easter, as we celebrate it, is derived from
different pagan customs blended into the holidays. In fact, the actual word Easter may have come from Estra, the goddess of spring and fertility.
But at the same time, that's the time that we as Christians and Catholics celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So whether or not people want to say, well, the tradition is actually different from we all know what it is. That's why we have all the days leading up to it. Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, Lent, all the things that go with it. We all know what it is. So I don't know why the trans community and Joe Biden specifically are so anxious to shoot themselves in the foot. If you ask me, this is a case of people that are truly trying to win the battle so that they can lose the war, because that's exactly what's happening right here. If you want to end up with Donald Trump as your president again, this is a good first step. You are really helping to radicalize people into voting Republican because the libs have gotten so ridiculous. And Joe Biden's administration just will not learn that dealing with the LGBTQ activists is not the smartest way to go and has not served him well so far. Remember during Pride Month when he invited Rose Montoya and she had the nerve to pull out her tritties on the White House lawn?
Moobs.
But some people will never learn, and that's going to have to be on Joe Biden and his administration. And sometimes I say things like this and people are like, oh, you just want this and this and this. I'm trying to warn you so I don't have to listen to you bitch for another 4 years when Donald Trump is our president, or 8 years if I have my way. If you want to know how I'm voting Trump all the way. That's my plan, 100%. But I know you guys are going to be bitching when he wins, and I'm going to remind you that this is your fault. Because every chance you get, you shoot yourselves in the foot. And when Joe Biden has the nerve to say things like, we need to uplift the voices of trans people, again, we think of the activists, and the last thing we need as a country or as everyday society is to uplift voices that constantly try to silence ours. Because all you have to do is say something that these people don't like on social media, and they will right away try to get your account removed. They will right away try to get you banned. They will right away try to make you lose your job. And also, let's not forget about the part when we say eliminating violence towards trans people, a lot of the trans activists consider anything that you say that may be critical in any way of trans people to be violence. So no, we're not all trying to uplift these voices, President Biden. And what you don't realize is that you're not helping out everyday trans people. Everyday trans people are not the problem. And when people are thinking about these things, they're not thinking about everyday trans people. They're thinking about the Dylan Mulvaney's. They're thinking about the trans man that everybody still sees as a woman that was saying that the doctor should understand that her biology is completely changed because she's been on testosterone for a year.
My body parts are no longer female, not even biological female, because my biology has changed.
We're thinking about Jeffrey Marsh.
Fine.
And every other person that identifies as trans, whether they are traditionally trans or not, on the internet is who people think of. Nobody's thinking of everyday trans people when they hear these kinds of statements or when these kinds of things get imposed. And that's who suffers the consequence of people that are just trying to keep a check going. Besides, does President Biden even know what day of the week it is? Does President Biden even know what time of the year it is? Because every time I see him, he looks further and further into mental decline. But for some reason, we're supposed to act like this is the president and there's nothing wrong with him. What are you talking about? He doesn't look like he's in the best mental state. What do you mean? He's had a stutter his entire career. But we're not supposed to at all acknowledge that there is mental decline going on there. What Joe Biden does when he's not playing president on TV is sits around and waits for his jello. And for some reason, we're not allowed to say it. So when you're trying to make it seem like everybody else is supposed to fall in line with what has become the transgender agenda, which really is the transgender activist agenda, because I'm going to tell you guys right now, everyday trans people are not trying to push all of these things. Everyday trans people are just trying to live their lives and be as normal as the rest of us, or as close to normal as the rest of us. Because really, nobody's completely normal. Everybody's got a little something, whether it's a ticky boom or they have to take a couple pills every once in a while to keep themselves right. Who knows what it is? But everybody has something. So trans people, real trans people, are just trying to live as close to a normal life as possible. And once again, the activists have jumped in and are setting the movement back, which happens to be the same movement that they claim to be spearheading. But let's go ahead and put all that aside. What I think really is going to be the nail in the coffin for this particular subject is that on the annual Easter egg decorating tradition, Joe Biden has said Easter egg submissions must not include any questionable content, religious symbols, overtly religious themes, or partisan political statements. Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but anything related to LGBT is partisan at this point. And I'm saying this as a gay man, as a member of the
to us LGBTQ PIA+
community. Anything anything to do with LGBT, trans, any one of the letters is partisan. And I'd like to say it isn't. I would like to say that as LGBT people, we're just fighting for the same rights as everybody else. No. As LGBT people, we pretty much accomplished what we wanted when it came to the same rights as everybody else. What's happening now is LGBT activists have realized that things have gotten pretty close to equal for us and they need job security. So they have to keep creating their own fires that they can put out so they continue to make more money and be able to raise more funds. That's what's happening there. And when you're saying that you don't want to see any religious symbols, but then you're telling LGBT people to be the freest you, the most authentic you. You can't tell one group to be the most authentic them and then tell another group, which would be Christians, that they have to hide it. The intention of the LGBT movement was never to make it so that LGBT people could live as freely as possible and Christians would have to go into the closet. That was not the purpose of the original movement or the way that the movement was intended, and that's not what me or any of the LGBT people that I personally know and hang out with signed on for. So continue to do what you want with it, but when it blows up in your face and you end up facing 4 to 8 years of Donald Trump as your president, I definitely do not want to hear anybody complaining, because at this point, the groundswell of other LGBTQ people that are trying to tell you that this is not what we want, but you continue to let these activists speak for us and make the general public think that this is what we want, and that's going to work against all of us. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything about the anti-LGBT or anti-trans legislation, because all of this is of your own doing. There is nobody to blame for the decline in support for the LGBT, or more specifically trans community, more than LGBTQ and trans activists. And that is the reality of the situation. So enjoy your Easter and let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Also, please give this video a like, subscribe if you are not already subscribed to the channel, and we will see you on the next one. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.